I still remember the exact moment my life split into before and after. It happened on a Friday night by a lake, and it started with the dumbest joke I ever made. My name is Michael. I am 29 years old, and this story still does not feel real when I think about it. I live in a quiet town in the Midwest. Nothing fancy, nothing exciting. I work at a marketing company where I spend most of my day answering emails, sitting in meetings, and pretending to care about things that do not really matter. I pay my rent on time, I complain about traffic like everyone else, and I order pizza way more than I should. I am not special. I am not rich. I am just a regular guy trying to make it through the week without losing my mind. But there was one part of my life that made everything better. My friends. We all met in college and somehow stayed close even after graduation. We had this rule that we never talked about but always followed. At least one night every weekend we did something together. Sometimes we went to concerts downtown. Sometimes we watched movies at someone's apartment and ate too much junk food. Other times we drove out of town and rented a cabin or found a lake just to get away from everything. It was simple, but it mattered. And right in the middle of that group was Emma. Emma was 27. She worked as a freelance photographer, which meant she always had a camera bag with her and was always complaining about difficult clients. She loved coffee more than any person I ever met. She kept extra jackets in her car because she hated being cold. She had this quiet sense of humor that caught you off guard. You could be talking about something totally normal, and then she would say something so funny you would almost spit out your drink. She was easy to be around, easy to talk to. To me, she was just Emma, one of my best friends, someone I trusted without even thinking about it. I never looked at her and thought about anything more than friendship. Never. And that is the part that scares me now when I look back. I had no idea what was going on in her head. No idea at all. That Friday started like any other. I woke up tired because work had been brutal all week. Deadlines, angry clients, mistakes I made that I had to fix while everyone watched. By the time Friday afternoon came around, I felt like I had been run over by a truck. All I wanted was to get out of town, turn off my brain, and just exist for a while without thinking. One of our friends had rented a lake house about an hour outside of town. The plan was easy. Drive out there in the evening, grill some food, hang out by the water, drink a few beers, and fall asleep wherever we ended up. No pressure, no schedule, just us. When I finally got off work, I threw some clothes in a bag, grabbed my phone charger, and got in my car. The drive out of town felt good. The farther I got from the office, the lighter I felt. I rolled down the windows and let the warm air blow through the car. For the first time all week, I could breathe. When I pulled up to the lake house, a few people were already there. Cars were parked everywhere. Someone was yelling about who forgot to bring the charcoal. Someone else was dragging coolers out of a truck. It was chaos, but the good kind. I grabbed my bag and walked toward the house. That is when I saw Emma. She was standing by her car, trying to carry way too many things at once. A duffel bag, a grocery bag, her camera case, and a blanket all stacked in her arms. She was struggling, but she had this stubborn look on her face like she was not going to ask for help. I walked over and asked if she needed a hand. She looked up at me and smiled. That same relaxed smile I had seen 1,000 times. She told me she would appreciate the help, but only if I promised not to eat all the chips before we even got inside. I laughed and grabbed the grocery bag and her camera case. We walked toward the house together, talking about nothing important. She asked how my week was. I told her it was terrible. She said hers was not much better. Client had asked her to reshoot an entire project because they changed their mind about what they wanted. We both agreed that people were the worst. Felt normal, comfortable, just us being us. The evening went exactly the way these nights always went. People unpacked their stuff. Someone started the grill. Music played from a speaker someone set up on the porch. Drinks were opened. Jokes started flying. The sun slowly dropped behind the trees, and the sky turned orange and pink. That warm, tired feeling settled into my chest. For the first time in days, nothing felt urgent. I was not worried about work. I was not thinking about what I had to do tomorrow. I was just there. Later, after we finished eating, Someone suggested we light a fire down by the dock. The lake house had this small wooden dock that stuck out over the water, and at the end of it was a fire pit made out of stacked stones. We all walked down there carrying our drinks and extra chairs. The air was cooler now. You could hear the water lapping against the shore. Someone got the fire going, and soon it was crackling and glowing in the dark. I sat down in one of the chairs near the edge of the dock. Emma sat down right next to me. She had changed into an oversized flannel jacket that looked about 3 sizes too big. She pulled her knees up to her chest and held her drink with both hands. She looked relaxed, happy. I started telling a story about something ridiculous that happened at work. A meeting where everyone argued for an hour about the color of a logo. Emma laughed, and I kept going just to hear it again. I did not think anything of how close she was sitting. I did not notice that her shoulder kept brushing against mine. I just thought she was in a good mood. At some point, someone in the group suggested we play a game. It was a stupid game we had played before. We go around and guess who in the group is going to get married first. It was never serious. It was just an excuse to tease each other and make wild predictions. People started pointing fingers. Someone said our friend Jake would get married first because he was always talking about settling down. Someone else said it would be Amy because she had been with her boyfriend for 3 years. Then someone pointed at me and said I would probably be the last one. That I was too picky. That I would be single forever because I could never make up my mind about anything. Everyone laughed. I shrugged and took a sip of my drink. Emma nudged my arm gently and said I was not picky. She said I was just thoughtful. That I did not rush into things. I smiled and thanked her. Raised my drink toward her like a toast. Felt easy. Normal. Then someone across the fire pit, I do not even remember who, shouted out loud, "Why don't you just marry Emma?" The whole group exploded with laughter. Everyone turned to look at us. Waiting. I do not know what made me say what I said next. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was because I felt so comfortable. Maybe I just was not thinking at all. I turned toward Emma, raised my cup in her direction, and said with a big grin on my face, "Emma, marry me. I promise I would treat you like a queen." I thought it was funny. I thought everyone would laugh and we would move on to the next joke. Everyone did laugh, but Emma did not. She turned her head and looked at me in a way I had never seen before. Her face was calm, serious. There was no smile, no joke in her eyes. Just something honest and real that I did not understand. The laughter around the fire started to fade as people noticed her expression. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear and steady. She said, "I have been waiting for you to ask." Everything stopped. The laughter cut off completely. Someone dropped their drink. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the water moving under the dock. My heart slammed against my chest so hard I thought I might pass out. I stared at her, waiting for her to smile, waiting for her to say she was joking too. But she did not. She just kept looking at me with that same calm, honest expression. I tried to laugh. I opened my mouth and this weird, forced sound came out. It did not sound like me. My voice cracked. I said something like, "Wait, what?" But it barely came out. Emma reached over and gently touched my hand. Her fingers were warm. She asked quietly if we could talk somewhere private. I nodded because I did not know what else to do. We both stood up. I felt everyone's eyes on us as we walked away from the fire pit. My legs felt shaky. My mind was completely blank. We walked toward the other end of the dock, away from the group. I could still hear them behind us, but their voices felt far away now. When we stopped, Emma turned to face me. She took a breath and then started talking. She told me she had feelings for me. Real feelings, not just friendship. She said she had felt this way for a long time, maybe years. She said she never told me because she was terrified of ruining everything. Our friendship meant too much to her. She did not want to lose me. But when I made that joke, when I said those words even as a joke, something inside her could not stay quiet anymore. I stood there and I did not know what to say. This was Emma, my friend. The person I grabbed coffee with on Sunday mornings. The person I texted when something funny happened at work. The person who knew me better than almost anyone. And she was telling me she had been in love with me this whole time. How did I not know? How did I miss it? She kept talking. She said she understood if I did not feel the same way. She said she knew this was sudden and confusing, but she could not keep pretending anymore. She had to tell me the truth. I finally managed to speak. I told her I did not know what to say, that I never thought about her that way, that she was one of my best friends and I never wanted to mess that up. She nodded like she expected that answer. She said she understood. But then she asked me one question. She asked if I could just think about it. Not decide right now. Not give her an answer tonight. Just think about it. I told her I would. We stood there for a moment in silence. The air felt heavy. Then we walked back toward the group. When we sat down again, everyone tried to act normal. Someone started telling a story. Someone else refilled their drink. But everything felt different now. I could feel people glancing at us when they thought we were not looking. Emma sat in a different chair this time. Not next to me. The space between us felt huge. I barely heard anything anyone said for the rest of the night. My mind kept replaying her words over and over. I have been waiting for you to ask. Eventually people started getting tired. Some went inside to claim beds. Others crashed on couches. I ended up on a couch in the main room, staring up at the ceiling. I could hear people talking quietly in other rooms. Footsteps, doors closing. But I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's face. That calm, serious look. I thought about all the times we hung out. All the conversations we had. The way she always remembered little things about me. How she would text me random things during the day just to make me laugh. Was that just friendship? Or was it something more and I was too stupid to see it? I did not have answers. I just lay there feeling confused and wide awake. When I finally did fall asleep, it was restless. I woke up what felt like every hour. The next day felt strange from the moment I opened my eyes. Usually after a night like that, everyone would be loud and chaotic. Someone would burn breakfast. Someone else would complain about a headache. But that morning everything was quieter. I walked into the kitchen and Emma was already there. She sat at the table with a mug of coffee, looking at her phone. When she noticed me, she looked up. She said good morning. Her voice was soft, careful. I said hey. That was it. Just those 2 words. But they felt so much heavier than they ever had before. It was not awkward exactly. It was just different. Like we were both walking on glass, trying not to break something. As other people came into the kitchen, the noise picked up. People started making eggs and toast. Conversations started. Emma and I fell back into our usual rhythm. We cleaned up together, packed bags, made jokes with the group. But every time our eyes met, I felt this pull in my chest. Something I could not name. When it was time to leave, everyone started loading up their cars. I threw my bag in the trunk and said goodbye to people. Emma walked over to me before I got in my car. She asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine, just tired. She nodded and said she would see me later. Then she walked to her car. I sat in the driver's seat for a minute before starting the engine. My hands were shaking a little. I did not understand what I was feeling. Confused? Maybe. Scared? Definitely. But there was something else too. Something I could not put into words yet. I drove home in silence. No music. No podcast. Just me and my thoughts. When I finally pulled into my apartment parking lot, I sat there for a few minutes before going inside. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. It said, "Did you make it home okay?" We had texted each other 1,000 times. But this time it felt different. Like there was more behind those words than just a simple question. I typed back, "Yeah, just got here." "You?" She replied right away. "Same. Talk soon." I stared at the message for a second. Then I typed, "Yeah, talk soon." I went inside and dropped my bag on the floor. I sat on my couch and just stared at the wall. My brain felt like it was moving 100 miles an hour and standing completely still at the same time. What was I supposed to do? What did I even want? Emma was my friend. But now she was something else too. Or maybe she always had been and I just never let myself see it. That thought sat heavy in my chest. Over the next few days, Emma and I kept texting. Nothing deep, nothing about what happened, just normal stuff. She sent me a picture of a weird sign she saw on the street. I sent her a meme about bad clients. She told me about a new coffee shop she tried. I complained about a meeting that lasted 2 hours for no reason. Felt easy, natural. But underneath it all, I could feel something building. Some question that neither of us was ready to ask yet. 3 days after the lake house, Emma called me. I was sitting at my desk at work, staring at a spreadsheet that made no sense, when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. My stomach flipped. I stepped outside into the hallway and answered. She asked if I was busy after work, if maybe I wanted to go for a walk. Her voice sounded normal, but there was something underneath it, something nervous. I told her yes before I could think too hard about it. We agreed to meet at a park near her apartment at 6. The rest of my workday dragged. I kept watching the clock. When 5 o'clock finally came, I practically ran out of the building. I drove to the park and got there 10 minutes early. I sat on a bench near the entrance, bouncing my knee up and down, wondering what she was going to say, wondering what I was going to say. Then I saw her walking toward me from the parking lot. She had her hands tucked into the pockets of a gray jacket. Her hair was a little messy from the wind, and something about seeing her right then made my chest feel tight. Not in a bad way, in a way I did not understand yet. She smiled when she got close, a small, careful smile. I stood up and we started walking without saying much at first. The park had a path that looped around a small pond. Families were out with their kids. A couple of people were jogging. Dogs were running around off-leash. Felt normal, safe. We walked side by side, not too close, and for a while we just talked about regular things. She told me about a project she was working on. I told her about how my boss had been driving me crazy all week. Felt like old times, like nothing had happened. But then she stopped walking. We were near a bench under a big tree, away from most of the people. She turned to face me and asked the question I knew was coming. She asked if I had thought about what she said. I nodded. I told her I had not stopped thinking about it. She waited. I took a breath and told her the truth. I said I never saw her that way before, that she had always just been Emma, my friend, and I never let myself think about anything else. But ever since that night, I could not stop thinking about her, about us, about what it would mean. She asked what I was afraid of. I told her I was afraid of losing her, that if we tried this and it did not work, I would lose one of the most important people in my life. She nodded slowly. Then she said something that hit me hard. She said she had been afraid of the same thing for years, that she had watched me date other people and never said a word because she did not want to lose me either. But she was tired of being afraid. She said life was too short to not take chances on the things that mattered. I looked at her standing there, being so honest and brave, and I felt something shift inside me. I told her I wanted to try, that I did not know what it would look like or how it would work, but I wanted to see where this could go. Her face broke into this huge smile, the kind of smile that made her whole face light up. She laughed a little, like she had been holding her breath and finally let it out. She said, "Okay." Just like that. Okay. We kept walking after that, but everything felt lighter. We talked about what this meant. We agreed to take it slow, to not tell the whole friend group right away, to just see how things felt between us without all the pressure. By the time we finished our walk, the sun was setting and the sky was turning pink and orange. When we got back to the parking lot, we stood by her car for a minute. She asked if I wanted to hang out again soon. Just the two of us. I said absolutely. She hugged me before she got in her car. It was not like our usual quick hugs. This one lasted longer. I could smell her shampoo, feel her arms tight around my back. When she pulled away, she was still smiling. I drove home feeling like my brain was buzzing. Everything felt different now. The next weekend, our whole friend group got together for a movie night at Jake's apartment. It was something we did at least once a month. Everyone brought snacks and we would watch whatever movies people voted on. Usually it was a mix of action movies and comedies. This time I knew it would feel different because of Emma. When I got to Jake's place, People were already spread out on couches and chairs. Emma was sitting on the far end of the couch. When she saw me come in, she smiled and patted the spot next to her. I sat down, and immediately I felt aware of how close we were. Our legs were almost touching. Someone put on the first movie. The lights went off. People settled in. About 20 minutes into the film, I felt Emma shift closer. Her knee pressed against mine. She did not move it away.
I glanced over her.
She was watching the movie, but there was a tiny smile on her face. My heart was pounding, but I did not move either. Halfway through the second movie, someone threw a blanket over the couch. Emma pulled part of it over her lap and mine. Under the blanket, I felt her hand brush against mine. Then her fingers slowly wrapped around my hand. I froze for just a second. Then I let my hand relax into hers. Her palm was warm. Her grip was gentle but sure. We sat there holding hands under the blanket while the movie played and our friends sat around us completely unaware. Felt like a secret. A good secret. When the movie ended and people started getting up to leave, Emma let go of my hand. But before she stood up, she squeezed it once. After most people had grabbed their jackets and said goodbye, Emma caught my eye and nodded toward the door. I followed her outside. The air was cool. The street was quiet except for a few cars passing by. She turned to me and said she had been wanting to do that all night. I told her I was glad she did. She asked if this felt weird, if holding her hand felt strange. I thought about it for a second. Then I told her no. It did not feel weird. Felt right. She smiled and said good. Then she told me she wanted to go on a real date. Not just a walk or hanging out with friends. A real, actual date. I felt my face get warm. I told her I would love that. We made a plan for that Thursday. I would pick her up at 7 and we would figure out the rest from there. When I got home that night, I could not stop smiling. I felt like a teenager again. Nervous and excited and terrified all at the same time. Thursday took forever to arrive. I changed my shirt 3 times before leaving my apartment. I showed up at her place exactly at 7. She opened the door wearing a simple blue sweater and jeans. She looked beautiful. We decided to just walk downtown and see where we ended up. We found a small coffee shop that was still open and sat by the window. We talked for 2 hours straight. About everything. She told me about her family. About how she got into photography. About her biggest dreams and her biggest fears. I told her things I had never told anyone. About how I felt stuck at my job. About how I worried I was not doing enough with my life. She listened to every word. At one point, our hands were both on the table and she reached over and laced her fingers through mine. She said she had imagined this moment so many times, that she used to wonder what it would be like to really be with me. And now that it was happening, it felt even better than she imagined. I told her I was sorry it took me so long to see what was right in front of me. She said it was worth the wait. When we finally left the coffee shop, we walked back toward where I parked my car. The streets were quieter now. The air smelled like rain. We stopped under a streetlight and just stood there facing each other. She asked me how I felt about all this. About us. I told her the truth. I said that stupid joke I made by the fire was not supposed to mean anything. But everything that happened after it, all of this, meant everything to me now. She smiled. Then she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. I hugged her back and we just stood there holding each other under that streetlight. We still had not kissed. But it did not feel like we were waiting for the right moment. It felt like we were building something real, brick by brick, and there was no need to rush. The first 2 months with Emma felt like learning a new language. Everything was familiar but also completely new. We still texted each other during the day like we always had. We still made the same dumb jokes. But now there were other things too. Good morning texts. Pictures she sent me of sunsets she thought were pretty. Me calling her just to hear her voice before I went to sleep. Our friends started to notice something was different. At group hangouts, Emma and I sat closer than we used to. We shared looks across the room that lasted a little too long. One night, Jake pulled me aside and asked if something was going on between us. I did not lie. I told him we were seeing where things went. He grinned and said it was about time. said everyone had been wondering when we would finally figure it out. I asked what he meant by everyone. He laughed and said the whole group had talked about it before, that it was obvious we cared about each other. I felt like an idiot for being the last one to see it. A few weeks later, Emma and I decided to tell the rest of the group officially. We were all at a restaurant downtown for someone's birthday dinner. After we finished eating and people were just sitting around talking, Emma looked at me and nodded. I cleared my throat and said we had something to tell everyone. The table went quiet. I said that Emma and I were together now. Dating. For real. There was a beat of silence. Then everyone started laughing and cheering. Someone said finally. Someone else said they had been waiting for this since college. Amy reached across the table and squeezed Emma's hand. Smiling so big. Felt good. Like we did not have to hide anymore. Like this thing between us was real and solid and everyone could see it. That night when I drove Emma home, she told me she was relieved. That keeping it quiet had been harder than she thought. I told her I felt the same way. When we got to her apartment, she invited me inside. We sat on her couch and she put on some music. We talked for a while about nothing important. Then she leaned her head on my shoulder. I put my arm around her and we just sat there like that. At some point, she tilted her head up and looked at me. Really looked at me. And then, for the first time, she kissed me. It was soft and slow and it felt like everything I did not know I was waiting for. When we pulled apart, she smiled and said she had been wanting to do that for a very long time. I told her I was glad she did. Over the next few months, life settled into this new rhythm. Emma and I spent most weekends together. Sometimes we went out. Sometimes we stayed in and cooked dinner and watched bad movies. Sometimes we did not do anything at all except exist in the same space. I noticed changes in myself that I did not expect. I stopped working late just to avoid going home to an empty apartment. I started actually caring about my place, keeping it clean, buying real food instead of just ordering takeout every night. I slept better. I laughed more. My whole life felt lighter. One night, about 4 months in, we were at her place watching some documentary she wanted to see. I was not really paying attention to the screen. I was too busy thinking about how right this felt, how easy it was to be with her. Halfway through, Emma fell asleep. Her head rested on my shoulder, her breathing slow and even. I turned off the TV and just sat there, trying not to move, not wanting to wake her. I looked down at her face, peaceful and relaxed, and something clicked in my chest. It was not a dramatic feeling. It was quiet, steady, but it was the most certain thing I had ever felt. I did not want a future that did not have Emma in it. Not as my friend. Not as my girlfriend. As my wife. The thought scared me at first. Felt too soon. We had only been together a few months. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized it was not too soon. I had known Emma for years. I had loved her as a friend for years. This was just the next step. The right step. I did not tell her that night. I wanted to do it right. Few days later, I went to a jewelry store during my lunch break. I felt nervous walking in, like everyone would know I had no idea what I was doing. A woman behind the counter asked if she could help me. I told her I was looking for an engagement ring. She smiled and started showing me different options. I did not want anything flashy. Emma was not like that. I wanted something simple, delicate, something that felt like her. After looking at a dozen rings, I found one that felt right. A thin silver band with a small round stone. Clean and understated. Perfect. I bought it and kept it hidden in my dresser drawer. For the next 3 weeks, I carried the ring with me everywhere, waiting for the right moment. I thought about proposing at a fancy restaurant, or during a trip somewhere special. But none of that felt right. Then one Saturday afternoon, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to take her back to where it all started. I told Emma we were going for a drive. She asked where we were going. I told her it was a surprise. She looked at me with suspicious eyes but smiled and said okay. We drove for about an hour, talking about random things, laughing about something stupid one of our friends did last weekend. When I pulled up to the lake house, Emma's eyes went wide. She asked why we were here. I told her I wanted to show her something. We walked around to the back of the house. The dock was still there. The fire pit sat cold and empty. The lake was calm, reflecting the sky. Emma stood there looking around, her hands in her jacket pockets. She said it felt strange being back here. I told her we were different people now than we were that night. She turned to me and asked what was going on. Said I had been acting weird all day. I took a slow breath. My hands were shaking, but I did not feel scared. I felt sure. I asked her if she remembered what I said that night by the fire. She laughed and said of course she did. How could she forget? I told her that night I made a joke. I did not mean it. But everything that happened after that joke became the most real thing in my life. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small box. I got down on one knee right there on the dock. Emma's smile disappeared. Her hands flew up to cover her mouth. Her eyes went wide. She asked what I was doing, but her voice was shaking. I looked up at her and said this time I was not joking. This time I was asking for real. I asked her to marry me. For a few seconds, she did not say anything. Tears started running down her face. Then she laughed, this soft, breathless laugh, and said, "I told you I was waiting for you to ask." She pulled me up to my feet and threw her arms around my neck. She held me so tight I could barely breathe. She whispered yes over and over into my shoulder. Yes, yes, yes. We stood there on that dock, holding each other, and I knew this was it. This was the rest of my life. And I had never been more certain of anything.